subject in Icebreakers.
My name is Maribeth Abrams. I'm the director, producer of My Friend Kim.
My name is Dickler. I'm the director of Big Bass.
Hi, I'm Amy Adler. I'm director and producer of Ragdolls.
Hi, I'm Marlo Poras. I'm the co-producer, co-director of Icebreakers.
My name is Roberto. I am the writer and director for Voice Shift.
I'm Corbett, and I'm one of the subjects in Icebreakers.
Good morning. My name is Rivkah Beth Medow. I am the co-director and co-producer of the short documentary Thanks, Babs.
First off is just in general, how did you land on this subject?
My friend Kim Hoffman, she has since passed, but she was a very passionate, articulate person. And she lobbied very fiercely for the option of medical aid in dying in the state of Connecticut up until she passed away. She did it for years. And her primary mode of lobbying was meeting with legislators from around the state to introduce herself and develop a relationship and talk with them about the issue. She reached out to many legislators, and many of them did reach back out to her, and they had in-person conversations or phone conversations, whatever. Towards the end of her life, she was having a really, really bad day. And she was talking about this one particular legislator who not only would not meet with her, but wouldn't even return her emails. And this was a person who was known to be in opposition to medical aid in dying. And she had cancer that had just gone through her entire body at this point, and life was really, really rough. She was having a terrible day. And she said to me, referring to this one woman, this one representative that would not return her calls, she said, "You know what? I'm going to die on her front lawn." And I didn't really think she was
That'll
gonna die,
show her.
but I was like, okay, whatever you want, but if you're going to be dying on somebody's front lawn, I think that we need to get somebody with a camera. This was just a casual conversation. I said, wait a minute, Kim. I said, why don't we just start filming right now? You're going through this, you're fighting for medical aid and dying, you're at the end of your life. Why don't we do that? And so I checked in with my boss, the owner of Skyline Films, and I asked him if I could do that. And so we started filming about a week or two later and documented the remaining, I would say it was probably about maybe 7 months of her life. In the film, Kim looks so good throughout most of it. She really does. And she was one of these people who just pulled it out to make it happen. I don't know if it was her cortisol or what she did, but oftentimes after we would film, she would be down for like a week and a half, just recovering from those few hours of filming. And so that's why she looks really good. Until the very end, you can tell that she can't really fight it anymore.
With Thanks Babs is a short documentary about a completely delightful octogenarian who lives her life on the 5-year plan. She doesn't plan much farther than that. And she's friends with everyone. She, isn't afraid to do a little tax evasion or a little shoplifting. My co-director and I are doing also at the same time a couple other feature documentaries, and we needed something delightful in our lives. The other subjects are a little bit heavier. So we started following Babs. We've known Babs for several years. She was in travel for many, many years, and she lives on a boat. She did live on a boat. She's since moved off, but we ended up just following her verite style. She's had a really peripatetic life, lived a lot of different places. She used to work with Mia Farrow and Frank Sinatra back in the 60s. She's had dog walking businesses. She had these advertisements for her businesses in LA. And every week they advertised something different she could do for you. So we decided to pick up the camera, follow her for about a year and a half, and then put together what we call our cookie of a film.
I came to Laura and Wade's story through my daughter's love of ice skating. She discovered the ice when she was about 6 years old, and I couldn't get her off of it afterwards. And I was just so taken with this like visceral feeling of freedom and joy that she felt on the ice. And I spent an inordinate amount of time then at our local ice skating rink on the weekends, and began to really investigate the sport. And I became quickly very taken with this contradiction or this duality of ice skating, in that it's that, this visceral feeling of freedom brings so much joy, but it's also a very conservative and slightly regressive sport that is on the cusp of change now, but wasn't maybe as much when my daughter was first hitting the ice. And so I did some investigating and found this tiny, tiny clip that really moved me. It was about 3 seconds or 4 seconds long, and it was of two men skating a beautiful duet together. At the same time, I found out about this extraordinary competition, the same-sex, extraordinary skating competition that happens once every 4 years at the Gay Games, which Laura Moore founded. And hopefully at some point she can chime in a little bit about that, and which Wade Corbett has been a big part of for years, that allows men to skate with men, women to skate with women, all kinds of gender bending, all of these permutations that are against the rules in most of international skating. And then, as coincidence would have it, it turned out that Joel and Christian, whose duet I had been so moved by, were planning to go skate at the Gay Games, which was happening a few months later. So everything just fell together very, very quickly.
How the idea came to be was that it was actually commissioned as the winner of last year's listening pitch. And so the listening pitch is basically a competition funded by Audible and Aesthetica magazine. And it's all to do with the theme of sound and listen to marginalized voices from around the world. Around the time I applied for the pitch, there was a UK Supreme Court ruling here, which was defined what the new legal definition of what a woman is. And that essentially is excluded trans women. And personally, I felt very big about the issue. It was something that was a lot of people here was very felt turbulent about. It was something that I felt strongly about, knowing trans people. And I felt that it would be, with the listening pitch or not, it was something I would love to at least try to apply for. So I did. I thought, how could we make this work for sound? And we just looked into research, into how some people transitioning, they work on their voice. So we worked on that. And we also looked at the bigger concept here of how, with these policies, that for some people it could feel that trans voices were being silenced. So we kind of looked at the overall picture, pitched it, and that's kind of how the concept came to be. It's quite a serious topic, but it was something that we felt was important with voices. And so that's how it kind of came to be, really.
Well, if you just watched Big Bass, you'll know it's a very, very personal film that I'm actually a participant in, which is the first time I've ever said that. And that's been an interesting experience. By day, I'm a documentary film producer, and I have been working on 2 kind of long-term projects, working with directors who are telling their own stories, and they're also very personal films. And that means that I spend a lot of time saying to artists and filmmakers, be more personal, be more vulnerable, get to the heart of it, and kind of pushing people I work with. I think that's part of my job as a producer. And I had this realization where I had never actually asked that of myself as a filmmaker. And so when I had that realization, I set off to kind of give myself a prompt to make a short doc as kind of a palate cleanser. So when I did that, it was a couple of weeks later that the memory I unpack in the film that's set in 1997 just popped into my head. And I think it was kind of an interesting experience where when you kind of allow yourself permission to kind of dig into your memory, into your past, things kind of come up. And that's the story of how Big Bass started.
Yeah, Ragdolls is a story about 2 women that live in Mexico that are both disabled, and they're married, and it's about how they kind of take care of each other and love each other. My dad was an expat hippie. He moved to Mexico when I was a kid. And so I spent my childhood kind of growing up there, and I have a younger brother who has cerebral palsy, and he lives in Mexico. He's a poet and a disability activist, and from the minute he was born, I just was like completely in love with him. I'm 24 years older than he is, so but now he's a grown man, and we've been collaborating and conspiring on many creative endeavors. when he came to me and he told me he had this story about these two friends of his that he knew from the disability world, and he was doing a podcast about them, and he had gotten a grant from the Mexican Ministry of Culture. I offered to jump in and help him. And so I got some grant money from UC San Diego, where I'm on the faculty. And we started doing interviews with Rosalinda and Diana, who live in Puebla. And, unexpectedly, my wife, Allison, and I became really close with them. They don't really have a queer community. They live in a small community of people that are very homophobic. There's a lot of discrimination. It's somewhat dangerous where they live. So the podcast really kind of evolved, and we all just decided that their relationship is so moving and so beautiful. So Allison and I were able to really just go and spend, a few days with them, living with them, and just having so much fun documenting a day in their life, really. I would like to say that Ragdolls is like born out of like a long relationship of like love and care and community and family.
It really struck me their independence, Diana and Rosalinda, particularly in the cramped quarters of that apartment, but also the absolute lack of any kind of support.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a way, it was partially what motivated us to, to make the film, because we were just so surprised that they were having so much trouble connecting to resources. And I think a lot of it just has to do with fear and, homophobia, and also just discrimination. I mean, we tried to get them visas to come to, we were in Real Abilities Film Festival in New York. We tried really hard to get them visas, and it was shocking the way they were treated in the consulate. And that was just a fragment of, what they experience on a daily basis. So, obviously they try in different ways to make money. Thankfully, after COVID, a lot of opportunities come up online. They buy things and they sell them, and they have different ways of making money, but it's very little. And so we also created a GoFundMe campaign to help raise money for them. But also, more importantly, is trying to connect them with resources so that they can continue to live independently.
True, you made me cry. So
Sorry.
Thanks. The balance in yours, it struck me at one moment when you are sitting down with Cheryl, and that was that, it's so important for queer kids to have access to queer elders, right? That to see yourself out in the world in some degree. But your comment to Cheryl about how your understanding that she was lesbian and that connected with you kind of made you retreat as a kid out of fear of outing yourself.
It was an interesting thing to unpack with her, because I think it, at least for me, my childhood experience of being a gay kid and a closeted kid, it's all wound up in a little chestnut that was kind of deep in the back of my brain. And I think sitting down with this teacher who I hadn't seen in 20 years as a queer adult and getting to really kind of talk to her about it and feel kind of safe and accepted as an adult version of myself, so much so that I felt I could kind of go back with her and admit to what I say in the film is like my biggest regret in life, which is true, which was that I was closeted in high school and didn't feel like I was brave enough to come out. I think it was extremely healing for me as an adult. When I was a young person, I internalized this idea that if you don't say the quiet part out loud, you're safe, right? If no one knows what's in your brain. But then kind of stepping into my truth as an adult and saying the quiet part, not only out loud, but in a film where I'm able to kind of share it over and over and relive it. I think that experience was so freeing for me, and it really taught me something, which is that like, it's never too late to do that. And there's always kind of moments for connection. It's never too late to kind of thank someone. And that's been really transformative.
What a remarkable person Cheryl is. I'm so glad you introduced her to us. Roberto, my understanding is that in the UK, TERF has a much bigger political influence than here in the States. there's the unspoken argument that gender critical feminism has, that trans women are just imitating real women. You could watch Voice Shift and feel that way, like they're trying to impersonate cis women, but you get to the heart of it, which is that this is the stakes are life and death.
Yeah.
For some people, in terms of your ability to pass and to train your voice to help you do that.
Absolutely, that's definitely the case. And I think with everything happening now, politics, and with all the kind of general thought from TERFs and society, it tends to be influenced by a lot of what's happening from bigger platforms being said things, like, for example, the new legal definition of what a woman is here in the UK, that can influence a lot. And I think what I took from this whole experience is that for the community, is just people just want to get on with their day-to-day lives. And I think, voice is something that a lot of us take for granted. There's so much information that comes from an individual's voice. If you speak to someone on the phone, without seeing their face, you immediately picture what they might look like, or what gender they are, etc., etc. And I think it's just for all these people that we interview, these wonderful people, that it's just now voice training is not just for a lot of people, not just a feeling of this is who I am and this is how I want to be seen, but it's also, there's a safety element there as well. And I think to hear that was powerful and sad, and I think it just shows the kind of I wouldn't say desperation, but just the length some people would go to. That one of our contributors, Shai, she opted for voice surgery, and I'm sure that's something she would have done anyways, but it just kind of reflected just what people are going through, essentially.
Icebreaker folks, I was very surprised to learn that the ice skating world is still profoundly homophobic. So since your film has the New Yorker's backing and it's so wonderfully made, do you see that it might play a role in changing that outside of the gay games?
How I met Marlo was, I guess she was digging around and looking for queer skaters, and we got connected. And she's been in my house many times, changing my whole apartment around, filming, making, and whatnot. And she came to Paris in 2018 when we did the Gay Games there. It took a long time for Icebreakers to get out there. And Laura and I, in particular, and the boys that you saw skating in it, we just wanted to tell the truth. And it took a few years to get it out there. But to answer your question, it's already made an impact. Europe and some other places now, they have same-sex in their competitions, but it's not Olympic level or world level yet.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that it ever will be, because but the fact is that we just wanted to get it out there and let people know, because they just see a man and a woman, or a man or a woman, and they don't see two women, which we have that going on now too, or two men, if you can see in the film. So we got all our inspiration really, and our freedom to come out and speak our minds, because we all belong to an organization, and we didn't, organizations, they're pretty tough, and as well as homophobic.
Marlo, did you move his furniture back where it belonged when you were done?
Yes, I did. And it came back again a few days later and had to move it again.
The Gay Games were founded in 1982. I was a beginning skater in the early 90s. I had always wanted to be a figure skater. I had always wanted to be an out lesbian. Neither thing was remotely possible until I decided that my life was completely broken. I was physically and mentally unwell, and it was time to fix it. So I left my husband, bought a pair of figure skates, came out, and discovered that there was essentially a gay Olympics. And it was coming to New York in 1994. There were a few people with a homemade banner in the Pride Parade. I reached out to a volunteer and said, this is so exciting. I want to skate pairs with another woman in the gay games. And she looked at me like I was absolutely from Mars and said, it's in the summer. We don't have figure skating. She continued that softball was very popular with lesbians. Would I like to sign up for softball? It's like, no. But she put me in touch with a woman on the board of directors, activist Anne Northrup. And when I presented to Anne that I thought people would actually spend money to see two gay boys in sparkly spandex ice dancing together at the gay games, she thought it was a wonderful idea and challenged me to put on the world's first queer ice show, sell tickets, and prove to her that I was right. And we successfully got a winter sport into a summer gay games. My organization, the International Gay Figure Skating Union, has been a member organization of the Federation of Gay Games since 1998. And every 4 years, we fight to get our sport included in the summer games. We have managed to be included every 4 years since 1994. I want to go back to your specific question. There's no question that to the average viewer watching, especially men's solo figure skating, we got a lot of queer skaters, but only recently are they out while still competing. Recently, and this is very similar to what Roberto was saying about the new definition of women in the UK does not include transgender women. The International Skating Union and some of the country's organizations like the United States Figure Skating have recently banned trans women from skating as women. We're experiencing nothing less than a global backlash. So it shouldn't really be surprising that homophobia exists in a sport that's very attractive to queer people. It makes me sad. But because of Icebreakers, I am being celebrated for a very selfish thing I did half my lifetime ago, which was to create a place where I could skate a romantic program with another woman.
Rivkah, Babs is in perpetual motion. It seems to have one speed and it does not change. Is there anyone or anything in her life where she can kind of unplug?
Oh my gosh, she's phenomenal. We did this supercut, when you're editing and you're doing string outs of a film and you're like, okay, can we see, everything in this scene, all the selects. We had our incredible editor, Christina Matwani, do a supercut of every time our cinematographer lost Babs. Like they couldn't move fast enough to keep up with her, right? So she's, at this point, we documented her 80th birthday, and we're on a boat, right? How do you lose an octogenarian on her boat? But she would just, leave the frame. She's got a lot of energy, and she's got a lot of curiosity, and she's really interested in everything in front of her. She might slow down when she gets a cold, but really she moves that fast. She's a New Yorker. She wants to know. She wants to be where the energy is. She is herself a center of energy. She just won. We're involved with the Curve Foundation, which is a organization that funds queer women and gender expansive people and journalists. And they threw a fundraiser, a lesbian pie eating contest. Guess who showed up? Guess who won? It was Babs, right? She's just, she's really inspiring. We're about to take the film on a senior center tour with another film. AARP is helping us get the film out there, and we're sending Babs around the United States with this film.
Maribeth, as you know, I rewatched your film this morning, so your question is last on the list. Kim is caught in the middle of some of the most powerful forces, institutional forces imaginable, and you make it clear that the Catholic Church is standing against what she and people like her needs. The legislators and the executive branch in Hartford are resistant to help. And of course, insurance companies, right? And Hartford's all about the insurance companies, play a role in this too. I really thought that came across clearly, that it's not just one woman's struggle, but this institutional problem that needs to be addressed.
It's frustrating because it's such a personal decision as to whether or not someone wants to have that option. And the reason I always say wants to have that option is because most of us don't know if we would ever want to use that, but we just want the option, right?
Right.
So it's such a personal decision. And so it's something that you would think we would all be able to decide for ourselves. And so it's very frustrating that such a personal decision could be controlled by a religious institution, or even this, group of this small minority, but very vocal group of people with disabilities who also are against it because they're very concerned that it could become a domino effect. I understand those concerns. I personally look at medical aid in dying as a very different issue. It is for people who have a terminal illness. And there are people with disabilities out there who are living good lives that if they discontinued certain medical treatments, they would become terminal at that point. So you could make the argument, wow, if somebody really wants to end their life, they could do that. But we can all refuse medical treatment right now anyway. Right. So I don't believe in the merging of those two issues. And I really believe that we should have the choice to do that if we want to have the choice. And just if knowing that it's there helps ease our anxiety as we move toward the end of our life, then I believe that we should have that option for people who want that, just knowing that it's there. And there's many end of life issues that we all might be thinking about. Medical aid in dying is just one. It's just one of many. It's not what everyone wants, but for those who do want it, I think Kim is an amazing spokesperson for how it feels to want that, just in case the end is way worse than anybody would ever think it would. And Kim's own mother, we don't go way into it in the documentary, but her own mother had an agonizing end of life, and she was screaming out, "Please kill me." And Kim has borne that. She's carried that for her entire life. And that's probably a good part of the reason why she really wanted medical aid in dying for herself. And it wasn't just for herself, it was so that her wife, Joy, wouldn't have to have that same experience of watching your loved one suffer to the point of begging your loved one to kill you. And there are people in Connecticut who have actually done that. They've helped their loved one to end their life when they were screaming out, please just do something. And those people oftentimes end up going to jail. You know, it's not,
Right.
it's kind of a fantasy to think that and who wants that on them anyway, you know?
And Kim lays out the explanation about how suicide that is not related to medical aid for the dying deprives your wife, your partner, of insurance benefits and pension and so on and so forth. So really complicated issue, and I'm so glad you brought it to people's attention with this. My friends, I am so grateful for you showing up today and talking about your films. I wish we had unlimited time to do this because this has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would love to see all of your films. I was taking notes as you were talking, like, oh my God, I got to see this film. And then I wrote that down for everybody. I got to see this film. Man,